Chapter 16 continues on from what Chapter 15 talks about in the terms of the role that writing plays in public relations. And with Chapter 16, it focuses in on both writing for the eye and writing for the ear, which, if you've taken any type of communication classes here at UAF or other universities, you know that when you are writing for something that is intended to be heard rather than be read, there are really different approaches to it, and it's in somewhat a different writing style. Most of what's talked about in chapter 16 does center in on the writing for the eye, and then it closes with the speech writing process, which obviously is very much intended a writing for the ear. So I'll talk about some of the highlights from that chapter. And as you can see, what's presented there is there are a lot of different written communication vehicles that PR practitioners have at their disposal to get the message across. And as practitioners, we have to have a really good understanding of what all of them are, because what happens, I know in my line of work, is a lot of people will, here at the university, when they want to get the word out about something, automatically go to the press release, because that's what most people think of as being the written tool that's used by public relations practitioners, and it certainly is an important one, but it isn't the only one. Sometimes a press release isn't the right vehicle, and so you have to look and you have to talk to the people who want to get a message out of who are they trying to reach, what are they trying to accomplish, and from there you can determine what is the best vehicle to get that message across. So some of the different ways: one is the media kit, which more and more you're not really seeing actual media kits that are given to the press in terms of a printed type of situation. It's more and more it's online with newsrooms that agencies have that they are using as a one-stop shop for reporters to go to get the information that they need. And the information that could be included in a newsroom or a media kit runs the gamut from biographies of the organization's leadership, historical information, photo archives, story ideas, archives of press release. I would encourage you, if you guys haven't had a chance to toot the university's horn, is to go to the University of Alaska Fairbanks newsroom, and you can see a good idea of how an online media kit newsroom can be used successfully. If go to the main UAF website, www.uaf.edu, and click on the link to news, and you'll see how we've set up our newsroom there. And look at what other organizations are doing in terms of expanding upon their newsroom to be an actual online media kit. Other items include the pitch letter. Sometimes you want to get the word out, you want the media to cover something, but a press release isn't really the best format for that. So a pitch letter or a pitch email where you're presenting to the editor or the reporter, trying to encourage them to cover a story. And it's written in a different style than a press release is, which follows very much a news type of format, as we learned in the last chapter, and as you practiced in your the press release that you wrote for the Raina Corporation. A pitch letter can be a little more creative. It needs to be eye-catching, especially if it's an online pitch letter. That subject line that you use has to stand out above all the email clutter that a reporter or editor might get. So a pitch letter is another example. Case histories are ones that PR practitioners will use. It's just having the information all laid out on a situation that happened within the organization. It's used mainly, case histories a lot of times are used as an internal type of document. And one that the chapter doesn't talk about that we do a lot here in my world is FAQs. FAQs, frequently asked questions, are used both internally and externally. If we're doing issues management on campus, some sort of crisis that the media is going to be asking about, ahead of time we'll prepare FAQs for those who are going to be acting as spokespersons, university leaders, and so forth. And the FAQs will be sort of kind of guide the person in the type of questions that a reporter might be asking. So when we developed FAQs, we think, okay, what is a reporter going to ask and what's our response going to be? So it's a little bit of creative brainstorming. Put yourself in the shoes of the reporter. Think of the hard questions that they're asking and have those answers provided. FAQs can be used internally as well, or externally rather, so that if people have you think of what are the frequently asked questions someone's going to have about your organization or some situation with the organization, and have those posted online so that people can go right to that site, the FAQ site, and kind of get the answers without having to contact someone. Byliners and op-eds, again, taking advantage of the media, local newspapers are getting the word out. Byliners are common. I do them actually all the time here in my work, and that's where you have a guest opinion piece, in a newspaper or a magazine that appears from the the CEO of the company, or in the case here at the university, the chancellor, the vice chancellor. Well, in fact, it's not actually usually written by that person. It's written by their ghostwriter, which is usually the PR person. And that same is true for for speech writing. A lot of times, as we'll talk about here, as we talk about speech writing, major speeches given by leaders aren't necessarily their own words. It's done by a speechwriter. That's true for the byliners. Op-ed pieces are those that are written by the newspaper, by their editorial page editor. Here in Fairbanks, the way those editorials sometimes come together is that the newspaper has, on a daily basis, they have an editorial board meeting, which is made up of the publisher and the opinion page editor and the news editor, and they talk about what issues they're covering in the paper, what the editorial is going to be, and what position it's going to take. With those editorial board meetings here in Fairbanks at the Newsminer, people are invited to come in and address the editorial board with the idea of getting them to write an editorial about what they're trying to accomplish. And we do that from time to time here at the university. And then finally, the other written vehicle is a white paper. A white paper is just giving, it's very similar to the case history. That's kind of a one-pager that outlines the history of a situation. So again, lots of different written vehicles available within public relations. As far as writing for the ear, we're talking mainly about speech writing, and the chapter does a nice job in just a few pages of outlining how a speech writing comes together and what the steps are in writing a speech, from starting with the preparing, going on to the interviewing, the researching, and then the organizing and the writing. It can be, depending on the length of the speech and the importance of the speech, a very lengthy endeavor. An example here is I helped write the speech for the University of Alaska Fairbanks Chancellor. He gives his annual fall convocation address, which is like the Chancellor's State of the Union speech that he gives to the campus community. It's about a 40-minute speech, and for example, for this year, it's held in September. It's now late July, and we've already started the process of working on that speech, pretty much following the steps that the chapter outlines as far as how a major speech comes together. So that's a good, careful one to read through. And as you watch, leaders giving speeches, you think of this process that went into place to make that speech possible. And you can tell when the process was followed, because usually it means that the speech is a good one, providing that the person behind the microphone is able to carry it off effectively. So that's Chapter 16, Writing for the Eye and Ear. Hopefully you found it helpful to you, and we'll see you at the next lecture. Thanks.